These are the spiders in your house.
Hello YouTube! Now a number of you have been asking for a video on a wolf spider, and to those people, today is your day. This one presents sort of the same challenges that the last video did, because doing a video about a wolf spider is a very different affair than doing a video about wolf spiders. The World Spider Catalog lists 2,457 different species of wolf spider in 129 different genera. So it's a huge and diverse family, and they're definitely not all the same. But I'll try to cover some of the basics about wolf spiders in general, while looking in detail at this species. So this is Trochosa ruricola, common name the rustic wolf spider. This spider is very common, and most of you will have seen it or spiders closely related to it. And it's fairly representative of wolf spiders in most ways, so it's a good one to start with. Now, wolf spiders exist in kind of a weird space in the public perception, often showing up on lists of dangerous spiders, but without some of the established myths or inflated claims that we saw in the case of the yellow sac spider. I'll try to get into why that is, the truth about these spiders and their relationship with humans, and of course, what you can expect from them if you find them in your house, as well as the more interesting stuff about their ecology. And this spider was a prime candidate for the cheese test, so I couldn't not do that. That would have been ridiculous. If you're new here and you don't know what the cheese test is, stick around, it's always a good time. Of course, a quick word of thanks to some folks who helped make this one happen. Dr. Catherine Scott, Dr. Sean McCann, Dr. Eileen Hebets, and Dr. Daniela Rossler, as well as John Rosenfeld, and my wife, who reads drafts of my scripts and keeps these things from getting too long. Thanks to everybody who has been comment, subscribing, and to my patrons, of whom there are a few more now, which is getting me closer. Thank you so much, everybody. The channel is growing, so keep it up, folks. Keep sharing these videos, keep engaging and commenting. I'm getting toward the end of the year I had off work, and I'd rather keep doing this than something else, so I really appreciate it when you click all of the things. Let's start with the scary right off the bat, shall we? Now, I said these spiders exist in kind of a weird space. Check out what happens when I Google most dangerous spiders. Here's what comes up right on the search results. A list of 9 of the world's deadliest spiders. Now, I haven't even clicked on the link yet, but you can see some of the list, and this is coming from Encyclopedia Britannica. Now, if you're old, like me, that name inspires a fair bit of confidence, as we might remember sifting through those volumes in the elementary school library while we were working on projects for teachers we were actually afraid of. The world has changed so much. And right there we see wolf spider, right under yellow sac spider, which we know isn't really dangerous at all. And it's actually above the black and brown widow. Now, a reasonable person would, on the basis of this search result, come away believing that wolf spiders are, at the very least, significantly dangerous, if not outright deadly. So what happens when we actually click the link and read what the page says? Let's see. Wolf spiders are venomous, but their bites are not considered dangerous. Then why did you put it on the list, Britannica? The bite itself has been described as similar to that of a bee sting, and the venom the spider injects may cause itchiness at the site. Huh? The weirdest description came from the website of an Australian medical practice, which I won't name because I don't want to get sued. It says, wolf spiders are not poisonous. Then says they may make dogs or cats sick if the animal gets bitten. Then further on down the page says that wolf spiders are not toxic, just that the bite can hurt. And 2 sentences later says, wolf spiders are poisonous and can be deadly if not treated. Huh? When I Google dangerous spiders, I get some cards with a few legitimately medically significant spiders, but I mean, what are jumping spiders doing on here? And this list here, titled The 10 Most Dangerous Spiders in the World, is coming from OutdoorLife.com, which sounds pretty legit. Again, if you actually read the entry in the article, it tells you at point-blank range that the venom isn't lethal and that the spiders aren't really aggressive. Which begs the same question, why is it here then? So, the text of these articles isn't necessarily wrong, but the fact that these spiders are even on the list is kinda wrong. And you know how I feel about that. Now that we've addressed that, let's get into this particular spider a little more. So this is Trochosa ruricola, the rustic wolf spider. First described by the Swedish industrialist and entomologist Charles de Geer in 1778, it's not a spider that gets a ton of attention, as it's quite common and doesn't really stand out, being a medium-sized, more or less brown, fast-running spider without much of a wow factor at first glance. So how do we know we've got a rustic wolf spider? Well, let's back up for a second and talk about how we know we're even dealing with a wolf spider in the first place. Wolf spiders belong to the Lycosidae family of spiders, so they're sometimes referred to as Lycosids. Lots of other spiders get mistaken for wolf spiders, especially a couple of larger ones like Eratogena atrica, the giant house spider, and Dolomedes tenebrosus, the dark fishing spider. As with jumping spiders, it's the eye arrangement that gives these away if you can get close enough to see it, which I know a lot of you recovering arachnophobes who have reached out to me are not likely to do, but keep at it. You'll get there. It's been really great to hear that I've been able to help you out with your fears. Wolf spiders all have a distinctive eye arrangement that is relatively easy to spot once you know what to look for. As with most spiders, they have 8 eyes. Now, 2 of them tend to be larger, but not the same 2 as, say, jumping spiders. Wolf spiders have one whole row of 4 eyes right at the bottom of their face. These are the anterior eyes. Now, these 4 are all more or less the same size usually, and just above those we have the posterior median eyes, and these are the heavy lifters. These are usually noticeably bigger than the lower eyes, and sometimes quite a bit bigger. Then the posterior lateral eyes, the last pair, are further back on the head and sort of point sideways. Probably the closest look-alike to this eye configuration is Pisaurids, the nursery web spiders. But in Pisaurids, those rear eyes are not as far back, so if you were to draw lines from the rear eyes through the big front eyes, the lines would cross on the head in Pisaurids, while they would cross in front of the head in wolf spiders. So the huge spiders waiting for you on the dock when you come back with your canoe or your sup or whatever are probably not wolf spiders. If we look at the eyes of an agelenid like the giant house spider, we can see that it's not even close, so those are easy to rule out. Now these eyes are a pretty important feature of wolf spiders, but we'll get into that later. Additionally, these spiders are active hunters generally. These don't make a web for capturing prey, so if you see a spider in a cobweb or an orb web, it's either not a wolf spider, or it's in trouble, as it's stuck in some other spider's web. A few species make burrows in the ground and stay in them. This is not one of those, and most roam around and actively chase down prey. Another good diagnostic is that wolf spiders tend to have very short, stubby spinnerets, so have a look at the rear end of the spider in question. If you see long spinnerets, you've got something else, not a wolf spider. Historical note: it was a wolf spider that gave tarantulas, who are not even closely related, their name. Lycosa tarantula is a species of wolf spider from southern Italy, described near the town of Taranto, not to be confused with Toronto, Canada, which is... maybe I just better not say anything at all. And it's pretty big as Italian spiders go. Back in the 17th century, people bitten by one of these wolf spiders would do a wild dance known as the tarantella, which was believed to cure the effects of its venom. Turns out that was far from the strangest cure ever used for bites from these large wolf spiders, and it's likely that these bites, which could be pretty serious, might not have been from these wolf spiders at all. From what we can tell, these serious bites were more likely delivered by Latrodectus treticymguttatus, the Mediterranean widow. But the wolf spiders were bigger and more visible, so they got blamed. Anyway, over time, people started referring to any large, hairy, unfamiliar spider as a tarantula. Eventually, it got applied to the biggest ones, the Theraphosidae, the family we now know as proper tarantulas. Back to this particular wolf spider. At first glance, this will look like a pretty plain, brown, kind of big but not huge spider. Sort of athletic looking, with fairly stocky legs and a well-balanced sort of body. What we're looking for this species, or really this genus, is on the prosoma, the head part where the legs attach. It's mostly dark brown with this pale median stripe running down the middle. It widens just behind the eyes, and this is where we want to look. Trochosa has these two marks, these sort of dashes running lengthwise in the widened area of that median stripe. If you see this, you've got probably either Trochosa ruricola or the very closely related Trochosa terricola, which is nearly the same spider. Along the sides of the prosoma, there will be a lighter band that's usually continuous and unbroken. These are called submarginal bands. On Trochosa terricola, this band is usually more broken. You might see a series of paired black dots down the rear of the abdomen or the opisthosoma, and they'll have this lighter heart mark outlined in a darker brown. This is where the spider's heart is. The legs tend to be fairly uniform without any real obvious banding, and on the mature males of this specific species, you'll find the last half of the front pair of legs is darkened. This doesn't happen with Trochosa terricola, so on mature males, this is a way to tell the two species apart. As with most spiders, mature or nearly mature males will have these sort of enlarged bulbs on the end of their pedipalps, while the pedipalps of females will be pretty much uniform thickness all the way to the end. Overall, quite a handsome spider. The females of this species are usually from 9 to 14 millimeters long in body length, with the males usually only getting up to about 9 millimeters. So again, a little on the big side as spiders go, but not huge. Some neat details that would require a closer look. These spiders have cheliceral teeth, and here's what those look like. So this is sort of the bottom part of the chelicerae, the moving mouth parts, and you can see this sort of groove that the fang would fold into when at rest. That's called the fang furrow. But the spider can sort of chew its food by crushing it between the fang and these teeth here. Also, in both the males and the females, the pedipalps have a claw at the end of them. This is a feature that Trochosa terricola does not have. Now, if you're getting close enough to see these details on a live spider, then good for you. So where will you find these? Well, wolf spiders in general? Pretty much anywhere in the world. This species in particular is a little more selective. They show up in the northeastern US, southern Ontario and Quebec, and the Maritimes, except for Newfoundland and Labrador, as well as the Pacific Northwest, most of Europe, Asia, more often in coastal areas or near the Great Lakes. Of course, this is always somewhat fluid. They're actually a fairly recent import to Canada, with the first record of the species in the country coming as recently as 1994, when they were found in Lycosidae, Quebec. I see records from South Africa, Colombia, and Peru too, so these do venture down into the southern hemisphere. As near as I can tell though, this is one spider Australia doesn't have. In the wild, you'll find these in fields, in grassy areas, in your lawn. I interrupted this one, having her lunch in the middle of my backyard, just right there in the grass. She let me film her for a while, but she didn't stick around when I invaded her personal space with my camera. And of course, you'll occasionally find them in your house, especially in the fall when the temperature drops and everything, including the pests these spiders eat, starts scoping out ways through that garage door that you still haven't gotten around to fixing. So what happens then? So you found some of these living in your house. What do?
Honey, kids, get into the van, we're leaving.
Nope. This spider can be mildly obnoxious, I guess, but not in any way that warrants any extreme measures. For the new folks here, let's go over the 3 measures of house spider politeness. Webs, do they make a mess? Movement, do they show up unexpectedly and spook you into spilling your coffee? And Biteyness, are they likely to bite, how often, and how serious is it if they do? We'll start with webs. This is basically a non-issue with these spiders as they don't make webs. Now they can spin silk, like all spiders, and they do leave a drag line, and they use their silk for making egg sacs as well as to signal to other spiders for reproduction, but they're not going to make a messy cobweb in that hard-to-reach spot above the stairs. Movement. If there's a way these spiders can be a bit rude, this is it. These are not spiders that will politely stay in one place so you always know where they are. These will show up unexpectedly, running quickly and generally being sketchy. Now the good news about this is that they're not fantastic climbers. They're primarily a ground-dwelling spider, so when they do show up to say hello, they're most likely to be on the floor. And they tend to like moister environments like basements. So you're unlikely to have one drop down into your hair from a light fixture or something, and they won't usually hang out on the ceiling above your bed while you're trying to go to sleep, staring down at you like they've got questionable intentions. So overall, not bad on the movement factor. The odd, low-level surprise, but nothing that a cup and paper can't deal with. They're pretty quick, and they'll likely make a break for the closest dark spot they can find, but you can always just let that slide and get them the next time you find them adventuring around. This brings us to Biteyness. Now, I've already discussed what the bite doesn't do. What's the reality of a bite from a wolf spider then? First, let's establish again what verified bites are. Spiders get blamed for all kinds of little marks that people wake up with and get diagnosed as such all the time, even when no spider was even ever seen. So people who study spider bites tend to look exclusively at what are referred to as verified bites. These are cases where the person getting bitten actually sees the spider at the site of the bite, captures the spider, and has the spider identified by an actual arachnologist. So these cases leave little doubt that we know what we're really dealing with. Now, if we want to start with Trochosa specifically, a verified bite by Trochosa spinipalpus in Finland caused pain like a wasp sting and local epidermal swelling, and that was it. Reports of verified wolf spider bites from North America indicated little more than localized pain, and in 1990, Toxicon published a study that looked at 515 cases of wolf spider bites that occurred in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Pain, generally mild, was the predominant symptom, and that was it. No necrosis, no major systemic effects. A 2004 study led by Dr. Jeffrey Isbister and Volker Framenow looked at 45 verified wolf spider bites in Australia, which is home to some of the more seriously venomous creatures in existence. Only 3 patients experienced anything more than localized pain and a bit of swelling and itchiness, and even then it was some mild nausea, headache, and a bit of malaise. So we've seen bites from wolf spiders from all over the world, and consistently, while they were uncomfortable, they were nothing remotely dangerous. So a bite from these will hurt, but that's really about it. Still though, pain sucks, and we'd all rather avoid it, so how likely are they to bite? One would expect that an animal with a name as fierce-sounding as wolf spider would waste no time in getting the bitey parts out. So let's fool around and find out, shall we? I first came up with this test when I did the video on the yellow sac spider. Now, I don't love getting bitten by things quite enough to poke at a scared or angry spider with my own finger, so I needed something organic that would be soft enough for a spider to sink its fangs into if it happened to find itself in the mood. I settled on a piece of cheese and built a little apparatus to attach it to my camera. For the curious, this is Black Diamond Old Cheddar, who, for the detail-oriented, did not fund this video in any way. But my contact info is on the main channel page if anyone at Black Diamond is watching this. Cracker Barrel, you could be in the running here too. There's an ongoing debate in this family over which old cheddar is better. So here we go with a male rustic wolf spider. This spider was even faster than I had expected, so I really had to chase him around. You can see that he kind of checks out this cheese a couple of times and even climbs aboard briefly, but I don't see any bitey action happening. This looks very much like a spider who isn't interested in a fight, he's got nothing to prove, and just wants to find a dark corner. I love the little hop he does here, like cheese just jump scared him. At this point, more than 2.5 minutes in, he's getting tired, but he just keeps running away from my cheese. And after more than 3.5 minutes of totally uncalled for pestering, he never so much as shows me his fangs or goes into a threat pose. The poor guy just desperately wanted some peace and quiet. Now in some spiders, females can be more aggressive than males. So here's the female. And as you can see, she also is a big believer in the runaway school of thought. She seems to tire out a little more quickly, which isn't surprising as she is a significantly larger spider. But again, no threat displays, no bites, just fleeing. For comparison, here's what a female yellow sac did after about 90 seconds of cheese foolishness. Stupid cheese continues to argue, and bam! Stupid cheese. So these really don't seem like aggressive spiders, and in my experience, they're actually pretty shy little creatures who spook pretty easily. I do suspect that their better eyesight does clue them into just how big this piece of cheese is in comparison to them, and they know better than to tangle with it if they can avoid it. Now, like most spiders, these probably will bite if they get trapped and squeezed against the skin in a panicked bid to not get squished. But beyond that, you sort of have to be trying to get bitten. That is not a challenge. Please, nobody try to do this. You're not impressing anyone. But if this is the case, why do these spiders keep making it onto these lists of supposedly dangerous spiders? I'm honestly not sure. I do wonder if this is a carryover from the days of tarantism, when it was believed that Italian wolf spiders caused severe bite effects, which we now think were probably caused by a different spider altogether. And maybe people find the notion of a creature with as imposing a name as wolf spider being relatively harmless to just be kind of disappointing and unexciting, so they just embellish a little, as humans are wont to do. I also found that a lot of the sources that talk about wolf spider bites mention that they can cause allergic reactions, but I couldn't find a lot of actual research that backed this up in any serious way. There is a bit of evidence suggesting that some wolf spider venoms may have histamine as a primary ingredient, but that study was done on guinea pigs and rats. I couldn't find a single documented case of a verified wolf spider bite producing any kind of serious allergic reaction in a human, so while it's possible, I think the allergy thing is 99% legal disclaimer. Now what about when they're biting things that aren't you? How do these spiders hunt? Wolf spiders can be broadly divided into burrowing wolf spiders and wandering wolf spiders. There are only a few species that are burrowing, and these will actually dig a burrow in the ground and live their lives in there, waiting for insects or other prey to walk by the mouth of it and snatching it on the way by. The rustic wolf spider is a wandering wolf spider, meaning it doesn't keep a permanent home base. It wanders looking for prey, and they hunt using a combination of eyesight and vibration. So let's talk about those eyes. Wolf spiders and jumping spiders are both known for having keen eyesight, but their eyes are very different. First, the one big pair of eyes isn't the same pair, and it turns out that changes everything. In spiders, the center two eyes of the front row, called the anterior median eyes, are different from the rest. This pair often has a movable retina, while the retinas of the other eyes can't move. And this pair doesn't have a tapetum lucidum, a reflective layer behind the retina that reflects light back through the retina a second time, allowing the eye to detect an image in lower light. In jumping spiders, this pair of eyes is the big one, and also has the most detailed vision. In wolf spiders, the biggest pair of eyes is the posterior median eyes, the center pair of the rear row. So their biggest eyes can't look back and forth, but they do see better in low light because of that tapetum. Wolf spiders have what's called a great type tapetum, and this type seems to be the best at producing a sharp image at the focus of the eye's lens. So their eyes can produce fairly good images even in low light. Now I say fairly good, but that's relative to most spiders whose vision is actually terrible. They don't see detail nearly as well as jumping spiders do, but well enough to recognize each other and to recognize prey, especially when they're moving. Also, wolf spiders can see polarized light, and they use the polarization of clear skies to navigate. In 1955, Floriano Papi discovered that the shore-dwelling wolf spider Arctosa pyrrhida would run straight back to shore on the surface of the water if you threw it out into the lake or the pond. But if you took it to the opposite shore and did the same thing, it would run straight into the middle of the lake, because it was running in a particular direction relative to the sky, not the shore itself. I'm sure those spiders were all fine. Anyway, when it comes to hunting, they likely use a combination of sight and vibrations, and I've seen these spiders follow prey around and stalk it. But there's a case to be heard for sitting and waiting, which is what looks like happened here. Let's slow that down. It definitely looks like the spider here saw the cricket coming, and one way or another it knew what it was. The cricket, however, seemed blissfully unaware that it was walking face first into certain death. But there's quite a bit more going on than even that. First, you might notice that this spider didn't seem to use its silk at all, at any point. So without silk, she must have some other tricks up her sleeve. And wolf spiders absolutely do. In 2015, Dr. Benjamin Eggs and his team took a look at what some of these other tricks might be in wolf spiders and other active hunting spiders, looking closely at the structure of their legs and how they use their venom. Now, to capture prey, the spider's task is to interrupt the prey's movement, keep it from escaping or harming the spider, and do those things for long enough for the venom to do its thing. What Eggs and his team found was that the specific techniques used by different wolf spiders depended on the particular structure of their legs and the efficiency of their venom. Lucky for us today, one of the spiders they looked at was Trochosa terricola, which is nearly the same spider as our rustic wolf spider here, Trochosa ruricola. We've actually known for a long time what some of these leg structures are, and they're pretty amazing. Let's start with adhesive setae, because if you watched the zebra jumper video, you're already a little familiar with what these are. These are tiny hairs that each split into hundreds or thousands of even tinier hairs on their ends. And many wolf spiders have entire tufts of these hairs that have more hairs on the sides of the last few segments of their legs. These tufts are called scopulae. When there's a little tuft like this right at the tip of the leg under the claws, it's called a claw tuft. These tufts of hairs create a lot of friction and make use of intermolecular forces called van der Waals forces, so that they function almost like Velcro to hang on to prey. The other sneaky thing these spiders can do is use these things called erectable spines. See all these larger spiky things on this spider's legs? Notice how you don't see them further down the leg? They're there, but they're laying flat to the leg. When these spiders attack, these spines suddenly stand up on the leg, giving the spider even better grip on the prey. Wolf spiders that don't have the adhesive hairs tend to have more of these erectable spines. Wolf spiders that lack the adhesive hairs on the ends of their feet, the claw tufts, like yours truly here, tended to wait on the ground and pounce on their prey because they're terrible climbers, while species with claw tufts tended to attack from above, waiting on a wall or leaf and pulling the prey toward their body. Now this attack looked pretty chaotic, and the spider ended up on her back. Oops, right? No. Turns out, while most of the species Eggs and his team studied didn't do this, Trochosa did. When capturing larger prey, these spiders will lay on their backs so the prey has no contact with the ground. This prevents the prey from escaping and prevents injury to the spider until the venom can take effect. Once the spider has a grip on that prey with its fangs, it lets go with its legs, again preventing injury. Then it waits for the venom to completely paralyze the prey. And they measure out this venom, trying not to use more than necessary. A spider only has so much venom, and it's metabolically expensive to produce. Once its venom glands are empty, it can take days or weeks to fully replenish it. And the spider knows how much it's got at any given time, so that influences what kind of prey these spiders are willing to attack. But once the prey is down for the count, the spider rights itself and sits down to eat. Add it all up, and these spiders are very capable predators, and they eat a really wide range of prey, sometimes including other spiders. So they'll handle a whole bunch of different pests in your house for you. If there's one other thing that wolf spiders are known for, it's some of their reproductive behaviors, but there was a lot more to this than I thought. One thing that stands out about Trochosa specifically is that unlike most spiders, even most other wolf spiders, they have two mating seasons, one in the spring and one in the fall. Now I mentioned that these spiders don't use silk for prey capture, but it's an important part of how these spiders reproduce. Like most spiders, the rustic wolf spider leaves a trail of silk or a drag line behind it as it moves. In many spiders, this is a safety line, but as these spiders pretty much stay on the ground, they don't really need a safety line. If anything, for these spiders, that silk is more of a pickup line. In 1964, Wolfgang Engelhardt let some female wolf spiders of a few different species from within the Trochosa genus run around in an enclosure for a while, then took them out, put a male in, and watched what he did when he encountered that silk thread. If the male was of a different species than the female was, usually he would stop, examine the thread with his palps, follow it for maybe 3 or 4 centimeters, then leave it. But when the males were the same species as the female, as soon as they encountered the thread, they stopped running, started violently vibrating their palps, then followed the thread. When they got to the end, they turned around and followed the thread in the other direction, hoping to find the female at the other end of it. Some of them got so excited when they found the thread that they began courtship behavior right then and there, waving their front legs around, and kept doing that as they followed the thread for 2 solid hours. Interestingly, after about 2 hours, the silk line seemed to lose its effect, sort of like perfume wearing off. Which is lucky, or else these poor guys might be following the silk trail of a lady spider that had passed by weeks ago and already found a husband. In fact, Engelhardt believed this might be the only purpose silk serves for these spiders besides egg sacs. What happens when the spiders meet, though? Well, like many other spiders, the males start a courtship dance, which involves vibrating the pedipalps, tapping them, and waving the front pair of legs in a particular pattern. If the female liked what she saw, she would lower her front legs out of the threat pose and let the male get closer, where he would continue some of his courtship stuff for a while longer, and then they would actually mate. What Engelhardt found that really surprised me was that this same general storyline occurred even when the female had been blinded. Now this, by the way, is done by painting over the spider's eyes, not gouging them out. Some people were horrified when I mentioned blinding spiders in the last video, so it's not quite as bad as it sounds. Anyway, it seems that this whole courtship display isn't what I would have thought. The female doesn't even need to see this whole song and dance, but he needs to do it, and do it right, before he approaches to actually mate, or he gets unalived. Holding back so many comments right here. Somehow she knows. So how does this actually work then? Turns out that wolf spider courtship involves what's called a multimodal signal. The male's courtship is literally a song and dance, involving multiple elements in different forms: visual, vibratory or seismic, and possibly chemical or scent. To understand this, I turn to the work of Dr. Eileen Hebets and Dr. George Uwitz, 2 arachnologists who have done a lot of work with wolf spiders and their courtship. In 1999, Hebets and Uwitz worked together on a study that looked at how females of different wolf spider species within a single genus, Schizocosa, responded to these elements of the male's courtship when they were presented only one at a time versus together. So they tested 4 species, checking for female receptiveness, slow turns toward or away from the male and getting into the mating position, when they were exposed to only the visual cues, only the vibration or seismic cues, and then the 2 together. In one species, visual cues alone elicited absolutely no response from the females. They didn't care what they saw, but when they could read the male's vibes, they got right into it. The other 3 species responded somewhat to visual cues alone, but all 4 species showed that they would respond to vibrations alone, without even being able to see the male. Now, in some species of wolf spider, males have ornamentation on their front legs. In some cases, this is darker segments on those legs, like we see in Trochosa ruricola here, and in others, it's tufts of hair on the forelegs. In 2000, Hebets and Uwitz found that in species with leg ornamentation, adding or enhancing the ornamentation increased female receptivity, so looks do matter to some of these spiders. My favorite part about this was that they tested it by having female spiders watch videos of these male courtship displays to see how they responded. Apparently, they either couldn't tell or didn't care that these darker legs or bigger leg tufts in the videos were fake. They liked them. I love how bizarre you can make science sound sometimes.
Oh, so you're a scientist?
Yep.
What kind of science do you do?
I make spiders watch adult spider videos and see if they like them.
The species that naturally had the most ornamentation responded to it most strongly, but not always in the same way. But all of this leg waving isn't just a visual dance, it's sending information seismically, and doing the dance correctly identifies the male as a member of the same species. Which is good, since males will sometimes start courtship with closely related species, but females are only receptive to those who can tap out the species' special secret code. This is a Schizocosa stridulans male, doing his courtship dance with the seismic signal amplified. So that's what the female actually hears. Now, the Schizocosa genus has what's called a stridulatory organ in one of the joints in its palp, allowing it to actually make sounds. Trochosa, the genus we're looking at here, doesn't have this organ, but it can still send signals through the ground. In 2008, Hebets revisited Schizocosa stridulans, which had shown earlier that females responded more strongly to better ornamented males. The earlier study had only looked at cases where the visual signal was the only one the females could detect. So Hebets tried it again, adding the seismic signal back in. When she did, it turned out the ornamentation didn't make any difference anymore. So at least in this species of wolf spider, for the guys, looks really don't matter if you've got good vibes. So why bother with the visual stuff at all? Well, it's thought that the visual signal might travel further than the seismic one in the environments in which these spiders live, like leaf litter. A male might catch a female's attention with the visual signal, allowing him to approach close enough to send his magical vibration stuff. Again, they're so much more like us than you would think. So what happens after they mate? Well, remember when I said these spiders weren't a burrowing spider? Well, females will make a burrow once they're ready to make an egg sac. Then they'll make the egg sac, attach it to their spinnerets, and carry it around with them. This, by the way, is one of the ways you know it's a wolf spider. Pisaurids, or nursery web spiders, carry their egg sac with their fangs up by their face. Wolfies carry it under their abdomens. I inadvertently uncovered a mother wolf spider while I was mowing the lawn one day, so I rescued her and gave her a safe home. My wife was quite impressed that I remembered to go back and finish the lawn. And she made this little burrow, which she lined with silk, and stayed down there for a good couple of weeks waiting for her eggs to be ready to hatch. I took a few peeks here and there, and you can see her here with her egg sac. I did find it endearing how she looks sort of scared but protective here as I'm intruding, but I let her be and covered her back up. Eventually she came out, with this whole mess on her back. Now from a distance this almost looks like some nasty fungus, but nope, it's her kids. Wolf spider mothers carry the young around on their backs for a while until they're ready to disperse, and they can run and hunt like this while somehow putting up with literally hundreds of children in tow. What I thought was interesting is how they're all oriented the same way, face down to mom's abdomen, butts up. I'm not sure why they do this. Except this kid. He's not behaving in the back seat, facing away like all the others. He's got his face right up in mom's ear, and we all know which kid this is.
Mom! 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 Mommy! Mommy!
The odd spiderling is either really brave or just gets lost, as I found a couple on their own around the enclosure. So here's what a baby rustic wolf spider looks like. Pretty adorable. This little one is almost transparent, as their exoskeleton hasn't really hardened up yet. And because of that, you can actually see the inner structures of the eyes up front there. I think we're actually seeing the retinas here. Anyway, once the proud mom had emerged like this, I kept her around long enough for some photos and video, then took her out back and released her roughly where I'd found her, so her offspring can all disperse, grow up, and have lives of their own. And we think these spiders might live about 2 years in the wild, but it's really difficult to measure reliably. In captivity, they tend to only last about a year. How smart are these spiders? Well, this is a really difficult question to answer. After the last video, I got thinking about intelligence and how we perceive intelligence in animals, and I wondered if there may be kinds of intelligence that we as humans don't recognize because we experience the world so differently than some of these creatures. So I wrote to Dr. Daniela Rossler, who had done the research that found evidence of REM-like sleep in jumping spiders. On the topics of cognition, intelligence, sleep, and dreaming, she said, "I do think all of those concepts are fundamentally biased by our own experiences, and humans have a hard time, or are virtually incapable, of neutrally assessing any of these concepts without comparing it to their own experience and their own understanding of it." Now, there had been a few studies on the ability of spiders and other arthropods to learn back in the 60s and 70s, and generally spiders had performed pretty poorly. It seems that as a result, after that, very little data on spider learning got published. But we can catch little glimpses, and these spiders have shown us that there's more than just automatic instincts going on in their spidery little noggins. In 2000, Dr. Fred Punzo at the University of Tampa ran an experiment using Trochosa parthenus, a wolf spider in the same genus as our rustic wolf spider here, so very closely related. He and his team created a maze with a floor that generated electric pulses, not enough to really hurt the spiders, but just enough to shock them a little and make them want to get out. The end of the maze was insulated, so it provided a safe spot where the spider was no longer getting shocked. They tested 20 adult females, having them run the maze 10 times a day for 8 days, and counted how many blind alley errors the spiders made each time, and timed how long it took them to get to the goal. For a control group, they did the same thing with 20 more less lucky spiders, and in those tests, nowhere in the maze was safe. Even the floor of the goal site emitted the shocks. The control group spiders, for whom no place in the maze was safe, showed no improvement at all, unsurprisingly. But in the actual test spiders, they found that as early as the second day, they made fewer blind alley errors. By the end of the experiment, the average number of blind alley errors had gone from 91 on day 1 to 15 on day 8, and the amount of time it took the spiders to find the safe spot dropped from 51 minutes to only 10. So this can't be explained by just instinct. This is compelling evidence of actual learning. Part of what made this a good test is that it was what Punzo called an ecologically relevant learning task. They were asking the spiders to do something that would be a benefit to them in their natural lives. As the paper puts it, the ability to learn more efficient foraging routes would reduce the amount of energy expended in searching for prey and would contribute to overall fitness. By the way, looking up Fred Punzo led me to this gem of a website, www.ratemyprofessors.com, where one student delightfully reviewed Punzo saying, "Come to class to get the handouts and then memorize them. They are essentially the tests. Don't be late and don't eat food." Like, in class or ever? Professor Punzo, if you're watching, the rest of the reviews were overwhelmingly positive. Anyway, that's what I've got for you for Trochosa ruricola, the rustic wolf spider. Hopefully a good first foray into Lycosids. There are tons of other wolf spiders I could discuss, but I had to pick one to start with, and I have lots of this species here. So I hope this answers a lot of your wolf spider related questions. Also, I did a very subtle, shameless plug for these earlier. You probably didn't even notice. This is my first merch. Now, some of you commented that you really enjoyed this phrase, and I thought this probably applied to a lot of you in your daily work lives, so I thought I might help some of you avoid some pointless conversations at work if I just put it on a coffee mug. So this is great for accountants, quality control inspectors, English teachers. I've just made these available with an eco-friendly print-on-demand service. The link is in the description, so grab one for yourself or for a friend. It supports the channel and helps me keep making spider videos. If you liked this video or found it helpful, please click like, leave me a comment. It makes such an impact on how well this video and this channel do. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and click that and hit the little bell so you get notified when I release a new video. Thank you so much to all of my patrons, especially the tier 2 folks. If you want to support this channel so I can continue to do these videos, check out my Patreon, where there's some extras, research notes, video I don't release on YouTube, behind the scenes stuff. That's all linked below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've learned something about this spider in your house, and I hope to see you next time. Cheers.